Good evening, everybody. I'm OG, that's Crab, and we have a lot of opinions about the Pirates. This week, the Pirates and their finances, which is something that I often obsess about, which I shouldn't, but I do, because we don't have any good baseball, partly because it's spring training, but partly because they might not be very good. So instead, the Pirates' finances, and whenever there's any reporting about it, we dig into it and we pick it apart. And like I said, we have a lot of opinions about it. So, Crab, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Friday. It's Friday, and
It's
the
Friday.
Pirates lost today, and
They did.
they look like they're in mid-season form. It's Pirates baseball, everybody. Get excited.
Well, like I said earlier this week, there was news about the Pirates when the Post-Gazette released an expose about spending and revenue. And they managed to get their hands on a few years' worth of the statements that the Pirates are obliged to supply to the Stadium Authority, showing how much money they brought in on tickets and concessions, because that's part of their lease. The PG got their hands on that and did a little bit of figuring and noticed that the Pirates' concessions and ticket revenue tracks almost 1-to-1 with their payroll, which I think we've all sort of intuited all along, if not felt like we knew it. Does that sound right?
I mean, I don't think people know that. No, I think people have no clue how these types of things work unless you are plugged into the baseball economics world or read baseball books about how these teams have operated since the 1890s. I think the average normal fan has no clue because most folks just assume that these leagues operate the same way that the NFL and the NBA do.
That's fair. I think when I said we, I meant you and I. But fair.
You and I, Pirates fans that are plugged into these numbers and these ideas, yes, I think we would have some ideas of essentially the team being, crowdfunded in that way, like a mom and pop. But I think the average fan does not understand this at all.
So that, of course, raised a lot of ire around Pirates fandom and broader Major League Baseball, which whenever the Pirates finances managed to crack the national consciousness for a few seconds, everybody takes the opportunity to wag their finger at Pirates ownership for being cheap, because they are. And here's some more proof. And so shame on you, Bob Nutting. You are only spending what you brought in from tickets and from concessions. What about all the TV money? What about all the revenue sharing money? What about all that luxury tax money? Where does that go? It must just go into the nutting money bin that gets fuller and fuller every year. Except there are other expenses for baseball, which later in the week, we got a different article, this time DK Pittsburgh Sports, published what they described as a long-running investigation into the Pirates' financing, where they claim to have been shown, I think, the books ever since Charrington, ever since COVID, I believe, was what was claimed in the article. And the conclusion of the article was that the Pirates are just shy of breaking even, that their expenses beyond the player payroll gets consumed by all the other costs of being a baseball club. Now, those don't get broken down for us, but we do have a little bit of corroborating evidence, right? Maybe?
I mean, I think that the narrative here is that it's expensive to run a 1/30th of a $12 billion industry, right? And there's a lot more to it than just players on the field. And I think, it's kind of hard for average fans to really give a shit about this because ultimately, I don't think you and I even really care, right? We care because we're forced to care because the situation with the Pirates and some of the other Major League Baseball teams is so bad that we have, like, if we're Reds fans or Rockies fans, we're also caring about these things, which we shouldn't. We should not care about them at all.
Steelers and Penguins fans don't have to care about this kind of stuff. I mean, they might care about cap space, but they don't care about whether or not there's, you know, any shot at keeping Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh for his career or signing, God, Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I mean, they care about the numbers and like the contracts.
Yeah.
Like they don't care about how much revenue sharing and what ticket sales are coming in and how many luxury suites are being sold. Like those things, they just don't care because they shouldn't, because this league is set up in a way where they don't have to care. In baseball, we're the only sport where we're like obsessing over, well, they made $10 and they spent $12. Where did those $2 go? I want to know every place they went. Why wasn't it on, Alex Verdugo or Max Kepler, right? So it's weird to be a fan of this kind of payroll sleuthing and tea leaf reading that people do with baseball. I find it to be interesting but strange, right?
Yeah, I've been trying to connect the dots, like for myself, because I kept hearing all these claims about how there's so much money and how there's revenue sharing and all these things. And if you try to read how revenue sharing works in the CBA, it is the most Byzantine, obtuse, opaque, difficult to understand jargon. And you really have to try to simulate it all. So I found a blog post from a Yankees blog a while back, and this guy kind of reverse engineered the revenue sharing. Now, this would have been for the old CBA, but didn't really change that much in the new one, the current one. And oh boy, it's complicated even after you see it as a spreadsheet, and it takes a bit to grasp it all. And it boils down to, you would need to have the financial statements from every single team because they all factor into a formula that determines how much the payors put in and how much the payees, like the Pirates, put in and then get back more of. The point is, it's really, really complicated. And so I wanted to understand the way the Pirates do business. Is there any way to rationalize them being the way they are? And so you never get the full picture, right? You just get all kinds of hints and clues and maybes, and is it plausible or not? So
Yeah, I guess my larger problem with this is, from like Pirates fandom, is that like we want to have this idea of like, well, the Pirates are a private entity and they can do the business the way they want to do it, but then we want to be entitled to all of these really esoteric numbers and things because we dump our emotional currency into the team we want to return on investment. This is our return on investment. It's super strange to me that we both, like in baseball especially, that there's this weird like interplay where it's like, we want to protect the free markets of baseball like good Americans, but we went like straight tanky communism as sports fans. And there's always like a fight that's going on here where we're like trying to meld the two or get the two to work together somehow, but they can't. They fundamentally can't work together in any way. So like in a really like blunt way, like I don't really care about Bob Nutting's the way he runs his business. But because we have to do this weird song and dance because baseball can't get their economic house together, we are forced to care about these really weird things. And it's like, if you've ever run a business or been around a business, like certainly you're going to have costs that pop up, like someone's health insurance premiums go up, you fix the sidewalk in front of PNC Park, whatever it might be, those are costs that change year to year. Like, I don't really care about that stuff, but I have to care as a Pirates fan because we have to know how come they had to fix that sidewalk. God forbid they fix this. It's just so like overwhelmingly strange and weird that I don't know.
Crab, they had to fix the sidewalk. The problem is people paid to put their name on those bricks 25 years ago, and damn it, those bricks should be back where they paid for them. They paid for those bricks. Where's my brick?
My breakdown of this whole organization is that we're in a small market, we have limited revenues. That's a fact. No billionaire is going to come here and subsidize these things. And, Steve Cohen is at like tapped out for subsidizing the Mets already. He's already gone on record and said like he's not interested in doing this year to year. Like eventually baseball's going to have to figure out a better system. And that guy's worth $20 billion. He's got it just coming out of him. And so like, do we think that somebody else can come in here and suddenly make PNC Bank pay them $50 million a year for a naming rights negotiated in 2001, right? Like, do you really think that somehow more people are going to buy cable plans or S&P 360 plans if another guy buys this team? Like, the revenues are the revenues.
Yeah.
And the thing with I don't understand with this whole argument that people have with the Pirates about spending money is like, these things they're like not going to change in any material way. Everything else is going to change. Player payroll will change. The cost of doing business, like those things will change. But like what you have coming in, unless you raise ticket prices, isn't going to change the fact that, less people buy cable and their revenues took a haircut, right? Am I wrong?
They did. However, just to play the devil's advocate for the other side, because I do largely agree that like the scale of things for the Pittsburgh market, all of the areas of Western Pennsylvania, Southeastern Ohio, most of West Virginia, the Pirates have their area, and that's what they are allotted to draw from when it comes to media rights. And there's also the facts of life of the Pittsburgh economy in the last 50 years. It's nothing like the economic force it was in the first half of the 20th century when the steel mills were building America, right? It is what it is. But the problem is that is a demographic fact of life in Cleveland and Milwaukee and Cincinnati and Kansas City. There's a lot of other places that have Major League Baseball teams, and those teams somehow find a way to occasionally field a more competitive product, sometimes with more money. And so I can understand why, if you're just saying, well, how come the Guardians can spend $110 million last year, but the Pirates are only spending 90? How come the Reds, when they're going
because they
for
have
it,
different revenue stream.
I
Because
mean,
they
yeah,
have different revenue streams.
but people, but like you pointed out earlier, they're not down in the weeds with that stuff. They're not looking at the Brewers and understanding that when they have somebody come to the ballpark, that somebody's paying to park and then paying to get into the stadium and then buy a beer and a dog. Whereas the Pirates are getting somebody to come into the ballpark and buy a beer and a dog. And they don't get that. Point is, yeah, the revenues are different. And it also helps that the Brewers are pretty good most of the time and get some playoff revenue. That helps them too. So, I mean, the revenue absolutely factors into it.
I mean, this is where, again, okay, like those points are well made. Like I don't disagree with them. And I'm not defending nutting. I'm not really defending the economic structure of baseball. It's just a reality, material condition of reality. Like I can't.
It is what it is. And the thing that everyone gets frustrated over, and I get it, is it seems like we're the only ones that never stick our neck out and go for broke. And we're jealous. We wish that our robber baron would sprinkle a little bit of largesse just once, but he doesn't. You've shared with me a theory of why you think that is. So you're a bit of a nutting historian.
Well, first of all, the Pirates have almost moved several times. Like you can, for those under 30 who have no memory of it, they always struggled to break even throughout the 80s and the 90s. So I think by the time that Nutty became part of the McClatchy era ownership group and then bought the shares in order to take full control, I think that he had just seen that this team had moved several times and he felt, for better or worse, that his job was to prevent it from moving. And in order to prevent it from moving, what do you need to do rationally as a quote business owner? Like what do you do to prevent something from failing in the business world? OG?
Keep it in the black.
Correct. So what does that entail? If your revenues are fixed, you have to run it only one way, and that's the way he runs it. And so, I mean, my thesis statement with Bob Nutting is that, like, do I wish he would sell? Yes. Do I think that would make a difference? No. Um, do I wish he would upset the apple cart in New York with Manfred and the union when it comes to CBA time? Yes, I do think that would be great. Do I think he'll do that? No, because I think he's just a risk averse dude to start. But I think that he believes that he is the economic steward who will prevent the Pirates from, taking out a loan, buying players that don't move the needle, and then having to tear it down, and then, pulling a Ramos Ramirez trade because they can't make payroll. I think he thinks of himself as this guy who's going to run the ship the way it needs to be run. And the Nutting family, particularly, they made their billions off of buying distressed assets in mid markets, right? Like the Aspen Gazette or like the Wheeling Papers or whatever, that in a dying industry, and then getting them to a point where they can just run on their own without having to be a drain on the organization. So I think, generally speaking, he runs the Pirates the same way, because we are a mid-market asset and we are distressed. And the other thing to consider is that, he ran ski resorts, and when he sold one of them, his like big claim to fame was, I kept this thing alive for families and generations to enjoy. And he does this with Pirates charities too. And Dejan Kovacevic talked about that in his article, where he's like, where's the Pirates charity stuff loud and proud, rightly or wrongly? And I think so. He has a chip on his shoulder because he's from West Virginia. He's a hillbilly in the big city of Pittsburgh. He enjoys the baseball culture somehow. He has money to spend. He spent it on buying the team. The team was run poorly and almost moved away several times because they were, running deficits at various points of the club's history. And so he has a career of taking small assets and getting them to run cheaply and self-sufficiently, and he's simply just done that with the Pirates. And we don't want that. That hurts our brains, because we want everything to run like the NFL. And frankly, this would be happening with the Rooneys if it wasn't for Pete Rozelle, salary cap, and all the things that happened in the NFL. This would be the Rooney story too. So, and this was the Penguins story too.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, that prior to the NHL lockout in 2005, where salary cap came to that league, the whole reason Mario Lemieux owned for quite a while the Penguins was they couldn't pay him his back pay. They basically just had to hand him the deed to the farm, right? And that's the kind of dire straits that they got into to be the team they were in the 90s and win those cups and try to hang around. And they came very, very close to being the Nashville Predators before the Nashville Predators were there, right? Like, it was Nashville that they were. Was it Kansas City?
The Kansas City.
It was Kansas City. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Howard Baldwin basically Shohei Ohtani'd Mario Lemieux's contract by deferring,
a lot of deferments. And then when the bill came due, the cash wasn't there. And so
because they never made Sudden Death 2.
You don't need a Sudden Death 2. You can't improve on Sudden Death 1. Come on.
It's sudden Deather, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like so this thing with Bob and the way the Pirates are run is basically a Shakespearean tragedy of sorts, because I actually don't think Bob is the villain in the story. I think he's tragic because he's a bit like Othello getting manipulated into making bad decisions by the forces around him. But the point is that he's not really a villain the way that we cast him with all this stuff. And I think this reporting, to go back to the original topic here with the reporting from this week, it wasn't shocking to see when I read that article to be like, yeah, okay. A lot of like the thing I want to posit here to Pirates fandom is this: like, if do I think he doesn't care about winning? I I do think he cares about winning. I do. I think every one of these sports owners or athletes, like Rendon, do you think he cares about winning? I do. Do I think he wants to get paid and not play? Yeah, I think both things are true. I think people are complex, and two things can be true, right? So with Nutting, it's like, yeah, he wants to win, and he would be, weirdly framed as, I don't know, if we won a World Series under his tenure, it'd be really weird for people here. But I think he wants to win, but he's not going to do things like George Steinbrenner would have done because, it's detrimental to the health of the Pirates. And I think he wants to keep the Pirates here in this market healthy more than his desire to go ahead and like mortgage the future like the Padres owner did. And I don't think that's going to change because ultimately, his investment in the future of the Pirates, getting something back for his kids, and he gives it to his kids and they sell it for $1 billion or whatever. That's more important than, and I mean, this is where the two things come together. We want to win, we just want to be entertained. I get it. But this guy sees this thing as a mutual fund in an investment vehicle for his children. And it's antithetical to what we want him to do. And he's not going to run it the way we want him to run it. And, this thing with the reporting, it's very ironic, really, that everybody wanted the article to be like, Pirate headline, water is wet, sky is blue, nutting is cheap. That's what we were all hoping for, because it would just reinforce this opinion that we have. Yes, the guy sucks. Yeah, right. We could it's a hater central. It's hate on this dude as much as possible. But instead it was like, no, he's not making as much money. In fact, he lost money. And everyone's like, what? What do we do with this? Oh my God, no. Because that hurts me, because it's two things can be true, right? He can be cheap. He probably shouldn't be a sports owner. But he is losing money, and that is an indictment on the Pirates. And by definition, we're losing money. Oh my God. Where did it go? Where did it go? Who got what? Did Stephanie in accounting get a $7 an hour raise? I want to know on a line item immediate day on. Where is that? Nuts. It's nuts because, right?
Do you want to see these numbers? Should we try to show them?
I do.
All right.
Yeah,
try
give
and
me
share my
numbers.
screen.
Show me numbers.
Let's see if this works. Okay. So this is a spreadsheet that I put together to, like I said earlier, try and make sense of where the money comes in, and does it even out with the money going out, or can we prove that high crimes and misdemeanors are happening? So this is all the national money at the top.
Well, I want you to explain I'm five very quickly.
Okay. All
explain
right.
I'm five in a tweet, right?
Oh my God. Okay. I'll try to boil it down. So Major League Baseball gets all this money up here from Fox, ESPN, TBS, Apple, Roku, MLB Advanced Media, which they still get revenue from for MLB TV. And that all adds up to a little over $2 billion a year. And that gets split 30 ways.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. How much money is Bob taking back to West Virginia? That's what I need to know. Who got a raise out of that money? Where did it go?
Bob gets $69 million. Nice.
69. Nice.
Yeah. Nice chunk of change. That $69 million. That's what Bob gets. They also get a split of merchandise that is sold if you buy MLB merch anywhere other than the clubhouse store. Everybody gets the same 1/30th cut. So when somebody buys a Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge jersey, the Pirates get the same amount of money for that as the Dodgers or the Yankees. That's the loophole with the jersey and the merch stuff. If you sell it in your own stadium store, you get all of it. So that is $2.8 billion worth of shared money that everybody gets the same cut of. And that works out to $94 million. So every year, the Pirates, whose payroll is not $94 million, start with $94 million from MLB, just like every other one of them gets. Moving along. Now we get into the local stuff. This is where the team makes money from root for our home team down at PNC Park.
Or they don't make money, actually.
Well, they get
really
money because
it's really the story.
People do pay to get in. It's only 21,000 of them per game. This is the figure from last year. So that was up a little bit. About 1,000 people a game more went to see Paul Skeens pitch than not Paul Skeens pitch. So this Paul Skeens effect, where he's selling out the stadium all the time, apparently that's only enough on average, because he only pitches every 5 or 6 days last year. So on average, it went up 1,000 people. This is according to the average attendance figures that Baseball Reference keeps for every club. So I'm just believing them that they have the right figures.
I was told by Yinzer Internet Dumb that he would pay for himself somehow. And I'm being a little facetious. I do, obviously I like Paul Skeens and I wish he would stay as a Pirate, but 1,000 people, man, I guess maybe you could extrapolate that and spread out like how many hot dogs. Like, I hope those 1,000 people each bought like $10,000 of stuff at the stadium in order to even get that ball rolling.
So they didn't. So if we take the numbers, if we take, this is where that per fan game day average comes from. So if we're gonna believe Dayon's reporting. We're just gonna take it that he got good numbers and he's reporting accurate figures for what the Pirates brought in as their game day revenue. And he had that.
Let's talk really quickly about that. Do you actually believe the article?
I'm going to say that it is plausible because of what we're looking at here. Like when he says he saw the books can mean a lot of different things, the books. So
like gun to head. Do you think he saw the book? He sat down with a tome and he looked through it and they sat down, they went Dayon. $1,894 went for janitorial services in Q2.
Yeah, see that. I think he saw top level numbers. If he saw any numbers at all, which sure, he says he did. He's and like he's been leading a bit of a crusade. It would have very much fit his narrative and his current vibe to just spike the football and say, "Aha, I caught you." But he was...
arguably, the guy was hoping for that outcome because that sells more clicks.
And he kind of said so in his article. So, I mean, that lends some credibility, perhaps. So I'm inclined to believe, especially these numbers up here, because when I had done earlier looks at this, like trying to take the Forbes estimates that everyone uses, Forbes doesn't give you all the details. They give you enough that you can try and like piece together, like, is this plausible? Are they really making $50 million in profit every year like Forbes says they are?
I mean, the thing about that is that so this goes back to what I was just trying to say, right? If Bob was making $50 million a year and he wants to win, because I think the baseline for all of these guys, yes, it's vanity, yes, it's an investment vehicle, but they still have a desire, like a baseline desire to at least try to win, unless you're Donald Sterling or Daniel Snyder, like those are the extreme outliers, right? Ostensibly, logically, like I'm cheap, but like if you give me money and I can still be cheap with it, but buy something I want, I'll do that because that's in the realm of being a cheap son of a bitch. If I was sitting on $50 million, spend some of it, Ben. Just spend some of it. Just do it, please, because we're fine.
Yeah, I mean, we had those dueling reports last year about there being money to spend. One reporter I think it was Parado had it one way, and then there was a completely opposing argument being floated through a different outlet. Doesn't matter. But we were getting this sort of palace intrigue stuff last trade deadline about there's all this, there's ample money from one report, and then another report saying, no, there's not. We're having to trade guys just so that we can take IKF. So anyway, I believe the game day number because this is very close to what I already had. If anything, I was low. I had this number lower than this because I was still going on the old cable money. So we look like this local media number up here, 27 million. That used to be like 50 or 60, at least by all reports.
So 27 million is like cable and ownership of.
That's SNP. That's Sportsnet Pittsburgh paying the Pirates for the rights to air the games because it is a separate entity. They get half of what they used to get, and I think DK reported it as 25 million. I'm boosting that to 27 to make other numbers further down the sheet line up. But yeah, like KDKA, that's like if they get, maybe they get 2 million from KDK. I've never seen it anywhere. They might. Whatever. Well, let's just this is just the radio gives them $2 million one way or the other.
Okay.
Probably.
So the whole thing is 27, and then local sponsorships would be like Dick's, Coppers, Silver Star Meats, like all the shit we hear.
Sheets on the sleeve, Light. Edgar Snyder over the Honus Wagner gate, like all that, all the billboards that you see out in the outfield, all that, all that stuff.
And then game day is the actual 82 games a year.
Yeah, game day is that buying a ticket, buying a icy light, and buying a dog.
So, you know, the kerfluffle in Pittsburgh this week was, oh my God, they're crowdsourcing the Pirates or whatever people say, right? And they only spend $80 million on payroll because their game day revenues are 84 million, whatever. It's like, at least I'm good with not having to trade Aramis Ramirez to make payroll. Payroll is covered because last year, you know what I mean? Like, to me, I don't see that as being that. I mean, is it probably the way sports teams are going to operate in the 21st century in baseball? Probably not, right? But I don't see it as ridiculously an outlier either, or some indictment. It's an indictment on Bob. You know, it's an indictment on the Pirates. You know, Pirates have many problems that are valid critiques, but like this to me is not one of them. It's just not. I don't know. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. Like that was the number.
Like, and so the fact that the payroll like lines up exactly with this number, this is the very simple benchmark that you can look at and say, okay, what they do last year on game day revenue, that's probably round about what the payroll is going to be. And that's what the PG article revealed. And what the PG article then went on to do was to speculate with the help of folks from like Baseball Prospectus and sort of, I'm going to call them thought leaders in the baseball media sphere, who
you use it loosely, thought leaders.
That there's sort of a groupthink that goes on in just the greater baseball zeitgeist about how much money is and isn't in baseball. And I don't think anybody ever really sits down and digs into it like that. But I mean, I wanted to know. So like, that's why I sat down and did it. Like, is this plausible? And so the PG article, they got some real numbers those are published every year. So we know what those are. And then they went on to speculate about, well, where's all that money? Where's all that other money going? We got all this TV money, and we got bloggers from Baseball Prospectus telling us that, well, of course that they must be pocketing tens upon tens of millions of dollars because they simply must be. And like why does that guy know?
Well, explain the rest. Explain the rest of the chart here because we're not, to kind of follow up on that.
So all that stuff is that is your gross local revenue, and that's a number that gets fed into that really complex formula. So everything that they put in turns right around, comes back, plus $51 million more, $51 million on top of the 146. So that means
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, OG. That means that they're pocketing money.
Well, so here we go. Here's all the money. Here's the whole revenues. That's what EBITDA is an accounting term. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. This is the money. This is the money that if you looked at your paycheck before the taxes got taken out, and then you look at the figure below that where the taxes were withheld, and you're like, wait, where's the rest of it? That's what this number is. This is the before taxes part. And it's not just before taxes, it's also before paying employees, fixing the sidewalk, keeping the water turned on in the Dominican Republic with their academy. Like, and all of these things, Like they all sound like really ordinary,
Every
boring,
team
small
has
potato
that.
stuff.
Every team has that, bro.
Every
Every
team,
team has
yeah,
that, bro. Bro,
every team,
every team has that, bro.
they do. Every team does have that. Every team
They're cheap,
has.
bro. He's stealing money, bro. I
every
mean, that's
team
what they, that's
has.
this.
Every team has table stakes. They have to fund minor league operations. They have to fly charter planes to 81 games a year. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that adds up. What could that possibly cost? $75 million? Like we're talking about a difference of.
Reminded of Arrested Development when the character's like, "It's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10."
$10. Yeah. Well, little did she know that only a few years later, it was a lot back then. Now that is what eggs cost, not bananas.
That right.
That's different than bananas.
There's always
Eggs are
money in
precious.
the banana stand.
There's always money in the banana stand, Michael. So yeah, so 292 million is the gross revenue for that. This is including all that national money above that 90 something million that we saw up there. This is all of this the local revenue sharing. It all is up to $292 million. And how come they're only spending $89 million on player payroll? WTF? This is the payroll from Ethan for last year. In 2024, they finished the year at $87,324,017. But this number would have been even bigger if Rowdy had gotten 4 more plate appearances. Shame on you, Bob. No, shame on you, Ben. It's Ben's fault. So then we get down here to, this is what DK reported, $2.1 million loss. So that it cost the club $2 million more to operate than this $292 million, which means that if we take the payroll out of this big number, 292, and we subtract 87.3, we get 207. Is that plausible? Is it plausible that a Major League Baseball team has to pay $200 million to just exist? Do they all pay that?
No, you tell me.
That
What
can't
do
be
the
right.
Braves do? Right. What do the Braves do?
What do the Braves do? The Braves are a publicly traded company. And as a publicly traded company, the Braves are required to file an annual report with the Securities and Exchange Commission where they disclose their costs and their expenses and their revenues and where all that washes out. And so they disclose what their operating expenses are for the baseball team. And if you subtract from their SEC filings the cost of their 40-man roster, you are left with it was like $240 million to exist as a Major League Baseball club.
So the point is that it tracks.
It tracks. And I also, Travis Sawchik, former Bucko beat writer, dropped a tweet to the effect of, every MLB ownership group likes to reserve at least $200 million before getting into payroll. So to me, that is a National Baseball reporter acknowledging that at the moment, the table stakes for existing as a Major League Baseball club and keeping the lights on is $200 million. Now, the Braves spend more than that, but the Pirates spend just about that.
Now, the question is, well, where does it go? What is it used for? Okay. Like, so all right, we don't get that in the article because
we don't get that in the article. But I mean, if it helps, right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now because we're stopping seeing numbers. But I got curious about that too. So I went on Pirates.com.
So wait, before you continue, I just want to say running a baseball team equals expensive. That's the math. Okay.
Apparently. So
more expensive than we want to care about. But we have to care. I don't care, but now I'm forced to know how much the janitor makes. A poor guy.
Take the Pirates list. The Pirates list a lot of their non-baseball player staff on their website. You can go, if you Google Pirates front office, you'll get as the top hit a link to pirates.com.
I know
where they list the front office.
I don't want to see. Nah, I'm good. I don't want to see. Okay,
you don't want to see the top of that one, do you? No, you
don't want to
see
the
name.
top of that.
You don't want to see his name, do you?
No, he shall not be named here.
We're not talking about the chairman. We're talking about his employee. You don't want to see his name.
But I don't I don't particularly want to see Bob up there either, because
If
he's not.
if you scroll past those guys and keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, you will eventually have scrolled past over 400 employees. Everybody from the executive assistant to the chairman, to the front desk attendants in Bradenton, to drivers, groundskeepers, mail courier, chief engineer, manager of corporate partnership activation, account executive, ticket sales and service. It's a big company. And of course, all the coaches are in here too. I mean, there's a long list of minor league managers, minor league pitching coaches, minor league field coordinators, blah, 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 athletic trainers and coaches.
So you're telling me these people need paid money?
I mean, probably. I mean, I don't think they do it for fun. I mean, they might do it for fun. Supposedly, baseball has a reputation of underpaying its they take advantage of the fact that like, ooh, I get to work for a baseball team, and then they don't pay you like market rate. I took a stab at just plugging in a made up lowball salary that's probably way too low for all of these. All of these. I Googled like, what does a general manager make in Major League Baseball? And so I gave our guy
six figures.
It might be 7. It might, I don't know. It's high 6 figures if it's in the 6 figures. That I know that hurts your soul. It hurts your soul. But then there's like senior vice presidents, VPs. These are 6 figure. Like there's a lot of these guys and gals. So I put a bunch of lowball salary numbers in. So we're talking about at least $20 million worth of just employees. And then you got to pay their health insurance, and you got to pay for them to have IT stuff. And you got to do all the office stuff where like they got to have a place to go work. They got to, all these things. So,
well, you have to do that across other levels too.
Yeah. So like, but the point is stuff adds up. And I don't know if anybody noticed, it's expensive right now.
And the other thing we're not even talking about is like there is an actual union that's very strong that gets the entire readout of these numbers. And if there is truly some kind of pilfering like the Yinzers say there is, like Yinz guys know that Bob Nung's taking out money, he's just going down West Virginia. Like the union would have put that on the masthead of Sports Illustrated or ESPN.com. Like it would be a front page story. And it's not, because it's not real. Because the other sponsors and the Major League Baseball itself, they're all looking at this stuff and they don't come to the same conclusion that we come to. Why? Because it's not real. Because they're a small market with limited revenues and it's expensive to run this thing. And our guy isn't going to write himself a loan to be paid back over 20 years like Cohen does, and is going to probably not want to do in the next 2 or 3 years, right?
And he's also apparently not going, and he's not going to take out loans to hire Anthony Santander to come play baseball here for 5 years.
I mean, the thing is this: like, if you maybe a case could be made that somebody else bought this team, ran it, got it healthy, got it really lean and mean, hired a smart GM in 2019, had a really great team in year 6 where the team was like real close and we were right in it at the end with, Brian De La Cruz in right field, and Jack Sawinski's. And then he's like, okay, maybe this is the year we take out a loan because we don't have debt and we can, maybe try it. Sure, that could exist and maybe it would. But you can't have other loans on the book, as reported, to just fund operations through the bad COVID years, which is also something we didn't even talk about. And this team sucks in year 6. We're not even any closer than we were in year 1. I mean, everyone out there can say that something different because they're using this team as a Rorschach painting for their own hopes and dreams because they can't come to the grips that this team sucks after they ostensibly tanked.
You got Paul Skeens, and when you got Paul Skeens pitching once every 5 days, you owe it to the universe to take out a loan and hire Anthony Santander to come hit you 28 home runs, right? Because that's going to fix it. This is where we agree, right? This is, I'm not, we've had this conversation many times and people are going to get upset with us for not like, no, you got to go for it. It's like, okay, I get it. But like, the reason this team isn't good is because Henry Davis isn't performing like the number one pick in the draft. And, you know, the tanking, much as like we hate the tanking, we don't like to lose 100 games a year, but it kind of did work. They did get 2 number one picks in a 3-year span. One of them turned into the best pitcher in 100 years. The other one hasn't yet really figured out Major League Baseball. And darn it.
That's kind of important.
I mean, right? So, and you go back and look at the trades to do the teardown of the 2019 team, where they trade away Joe Musgrove and they trade away Jameson Taillon, and they trade away who else? Josh Bell and Starling Marte, and eventually Adam Frazier.
Adam Frazier the first time.
Adam Frazier the first time. They trade away all these guys, and all they have to show for it today is David Bednar, who may or may not be done being good, and Jack Sawinski, who may never have been good, but he had 26 home runs in 2023. There's a lot of maybes. There's a lot of, if they all have career years at the exact same time and nobody else other than Jared Jones gets hurt, that, you know, catch lightning in a bottle.
Now, you said that there was like a podcast that you watched or something with Todd Frazier. Like, summarize that really quick.
Yeah.
I don't think you have a clip to play, but just give me a quick summarization.
No, I don't give him the airtime. Yeah. So it's foul territory. I disagree with them a lot, and yet I still watched it. But they had DK on as a guest today to explain yourself, sir. How dare you pull back the curtain and not show us what we wanted to see? And in the course of talking about this, like they don't know what they're talking about, man. They're former players, so they have a certain point of view that is probably underinformed, to be kind. That's not to say that they weren't like seeing stuff. And these guys, they're also affiliated with Ken Rosenthal.
So their take was, we're mad that Bob Nutting is not stealing money.
So, well, they had DK on, and he explained his reporting. And then the second that he was off the stream, they were immediately like, I don't buy that. That's a bunch. No way. No way. No way. No, he's definitely making a bunch of money. It's only $2 million he's losing. That's nothing in baseball. It's only $2 million. Like, that's literally what they said. It's only $2 million. It's nothing in baseball. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, so he should be losing 50? If he's losing 50, are we satisfied? So how much of his personal wealth does he have to like dissolve in acid to satisfy us? I mean, like yes, like eat the rich and all, but like, according to DK's reporting, all he's doing is just running the team responsibly. So everybody's very upset that he's just running the team responsibly. He's supposed to, I don't know, man. Like, is he making a bunch of money when he eventually sells this team? If he eventually sells it? Absolutely. What did he buy this team for back in, what was it, 2007 when he became?
Yeah, I mean, he bought in the first group. It was like comically low.
It was really Ogden. His father was like what got them their original stake, and then he started buying up enough people exiting the partnership, the McClatchy partnership, to take control in 2007. But whatever it was like tens or like in the tens of millions, less than $100 million.
It was like 100 million or something. 100 million. It was like something like that, like 90.
So,
right. I don't know. I could Google it, but I don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. The point is that the team is valued now probably at $1.3-ish billion, maybe even more. So like he's not poor, obviously, but there's a difference between the value of your house and whether or not you can spend that money. Like, I'm not going to go out and take out a loan against my house and then take that money to Vegas and just party like I'm a high roller. I'm not just going to go light it on fire.
I mean, people do that and they go bankrupt.
Yeah, they shouldn't.
No, they shouldn't. I mean, technically speaking, like the house I'm sitting in now, what I bought it for and what it's worth on the market, which is not actualized, and that market can change. Now, the thing about sports ownership is those numbers go up, 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 up. They never go down. If sports ownership numbers
Oh,
go down, then the world is collapsing, like a true collapse. Like the dollar is collapsed. The federal government is like,
yeah,
this is
you
a
got other
closed
problems.
market. Right. We have a lot of problems. But like, this idea that like, well, it's, Todd Frazier, I'm sure, said something like, it's worth $1 billion, bro. 2 million is nothing. I mean, I should go back and watch it. But my sense of the matter is like, on one hand, I don't care. I really don't care. Like if he decided to go buy Anthony Santander and spend 50 million nutting dollars, do I actually care? No. I want to see interesting, fun players for the summer. I would care because the team sucks and it's a bad investment, and I know I'd have to pay the piper with my future emotional stakes in the club years down the road. And so for me, it's like, oh, what are we doing? Because this is not an answer, right? So do I care about the money? No. I care about the fact that it's bad baseball, really. And here's the other thing I can't. Like parse out with this is that these guys like Rosenthal and these bloggers, they assume everybody's making money because the union said they made $12 billion and Manfred says it's a $12 billion industry, so they have to be making money. Okay, fair enough point. But like there's a lot of like inequities in baseball. There's there's a 1% and there's a 99%. We're in the 99%. We're paycheck to paycheck here, people. The Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets, probably those three, the Red Sox, the Phillies, they're the 1%. They're the ones that are on yachts and getting fake tits for their metaphorical girlfriends. I'm the one, as a Pirates fan, that's looking at the numbers and being like, do I pay the mortgage or do I buy groceries? That's the life of this team because we are in the 99 percentile. These guys, they can't understand. What they're really mad about is that we don't have a system where they don't have to talk about this. Do I think that these guys make money in an industry off of like talking about baseball economics? Absolutely. But they talk about economics in football. They talk about economics in the NBA. They talk about cap aprons and second taxes in the NBA on every podcast, right? They talk about bad contracts constantly. So there's certainly, you still have your market to talk about contracts and money and this guy sucks and he's getting paid this much. I mean, that's certainly going to happen in sports punditry. But what everybody's really secretly mad about, but they can't say it, is that, God, this system sucks. The system is set up so poorly that we have to spend time talking to this guy from Pittsburgh about $2 million loss for some guy named Nutting from West Virginia. What are we doing? But yet they have to like defend this system. They have to go out and defend it. We got to defend the status quo. We can never let it, it's crazy.
It's very weird.
It would be better served if the baseball ecosystem would just be like, this fucking thing sucks. Let's burn it down and let's rebuild it up. And what would it look like? Maybe look a little bit like the NBA. Maybe look a little bit like the NFL.
That's
maybe
a whole dash other podcast.
Sure, it is. But I'm saying, to me, that's why these guys get so mad, because it's just so hard for them to believe. Now, what's the last thing we have here on tap?
Oh, Sampson. Yeah. So this is David Sampson. He's a former major league executive. He was in charge of the Marlins like 20 years ago, and in the time since has taken up talking to cameras like this. And so this is an episode that he did earlier in the week, and he laid into the PG about their article and what it assumed versus what it reported.
Something else got into my craw yesterday. I don't know how to have this fight with everyone again. I've been doing it since 2001. A 23-year fight may sound like a marriage to you, or a friendship, or a business partnership, but for 23 years, I've been trying to talk to you about baseball finances. I don't want to impugn a newspaper or any writers because I respect we create every day.
Can I just say this guy has a really nice haircut? Did a little reaction video. He has a very nice haircut.
I mean, I got no leg to stand on. I wish I could have a nice haircut.
Well, you have a nice head, so that goes a long way.
From blank. Every day we do a show for you. And it starts off as a blank piece of paper. It's what newspapers have to do every single day. There was a story on the front page above the fold of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. that was talking about the Pirates financing. And while you're going to accuse me of being a shill for Bob Nutting,
sorry, dude, we already took that mantle.
Yeah, Bob Nutting Shill Club is all filled up.
That might be the name of this podcast at some point.
Which I think I made pretty clear to you I'm not. While you're going to say that I'm just being nice to Travis Williams, which I think it's pretty clear that I've given you my view of the Pirates. But this article was an absolute joke. You call yourself a newspaper, you go front page above the fold, and your thesis, your theory, your holding is that the Pittsburgh Pirates over the past 3 years have made more money selling tickets, hot dogs, beer, and other concessions than they've spent on players. You're doing an article that's tying gate revenue to player payroll and arguing and getting quotes from a bunch of people who don't know shite about shite.
Wow, he really held back there. I was hoping he'd just drop like a hard swear word. Come on.
He's got like real sponsors. Like he's part of like a network and everything. He's got to be careful what he says. Got to censor himself a little bit.
Boring.
He's fired up. You can tell. And like,
yeah, he is.
And this is where like he's upset. The facts are the facts. They get that much money from those things, and that's what they spend on the player payroll. I mean, it's not untrue, is it? But like what he's really upset about, and he'll get into it, is the assumption that there's just, like we talked about earlier, all this extra money that just gets sent to Wheeling.
Well, maybe it does. I don't know. I can't believe anything. Everything's a conspiracy theory. Let's see what he says.
That if you've got $100 million in gate revenue, you've got to have a payroll that's more than $100 million. Because if not, that makes no sense. You must be pocketing all of revenue sharing, all of national broadcast revenue, all of local broadcast revenue. You're pocketing every dollar. What moronic logic? Because it's wrong. The cost of running a team is not just player payroll. But that's all the media wants to tell you it is. What about the aforementioned minor league system, which costs tens of millions of dollars? What about the people in marketing, finance? What about non-player payroll, workers' comp, human resources? What about marketing? I could
These
go
are big
on.
Words.
The rule is very
We covered
simple.
this, David.
If you have a payroll that is more than 50% of your total revenue, you will lose money on an operating basis. It's a guarantee.
Boom. That's the key right there. That's the reason that you should watch that. Yeah, right. Yeah, go ahead and pause that. That's the high level benchmark. I mean, he would know, right? He ran the Marlins for years. And it's interesting because if you look at the cap leagues, basically all of them, but within a couple percentage points, the union is essentially guaranteed half of the take. In the NFL, it might, I forget what the exact percentage is.
Right. They're all like one's 49 and it's on a scale, I think one's 51.
Yeah, they're within a couple percentage points of half. So half. So in these cap leagues, the players' unions in each of those are in aggregate are getting half of the league's revenues. So in baseball, if that were to be the case, you would have $6 billion to divide among 30 teams' payrolls, each one getting an equal one if it's a cap, right? So here's a former MLB executive who ran a team for years telling you that you can just take the total revenues of a team and say, like, anything more than half of that, you're losing money, plain and simple. Okay, I'm willing to buy that, because when you look at all the cap leagues, that's what they agree to pay, is like, here's all you can get, because we need the other half to keep the lights on.
Makes sense. On a macro scale, a micro scale, it makes sense anyway. All right, let's see what else.
When you add up your revenue, you take your gate revenue, you take your broadcast revenue, You take it locally and nationally. You take your sponsorship revenue, and then you take 50% of that, and then your payroll is still too high. What about debt service, interest that you pay on the money you've borrowed? There's so many areas where cash is used to run a baseball team or to run a business that to further the narrative that this is solely matching payroll to gate revenue as a way to show that Bob Nutting is a cheapskate and has not held his share of the bargain with the beautiful PNC ballpark is a disservice to your readers.
Because we're stupid and that's what we want. I'm sorry. I know this is like, people get high on Bob Nutting hate. And I used to be one of them too. And sometimes I still am. And that's, to answer your question, David, that's why. People just want to be told exactly what they want to hear. They don't care whatever nuance or facts you might have. It's just, this is their preconceived notion. This is what they want. The PG, God love them, it's just giving their market exactly what they want.
Why do you want to treat people as though they're stupid? It forced Travis Williams to come out and give quotes that he shouldn't have to give.
Yeah.
Poor Travis Williams. He had to come out and give quotes. This is where David is like sympathizing with the poor business executive who had to come out and like face a little bit of public scrutiny. He's like, well, whatever, who cares? Like, I don't feel any sympathy for that.
You think
no.
This was? I don't feel sympathy, but it's not. The Pirates are so thin-skinned. This is where the critiques of Bob Nutting really are true. They're thin-skinned. They are not like everything DK said in his reporting at the end of the first circle. Like, we've all said this behind the scenes many times. It's something that it's not unique to him or me. It's just how they operate. And if they were just to come out and say, like, yeah, we're not going to open the books because we're not going to like divulge Stephanie in accounting's like paycheck and stuff, but we'll tell you a top line number. And you can go ahead and call the commissioner's office. Somewhere along the line, that would have been very helpful to do within their abilities to do so. But they don't, because they're upset. They're terrified little. They're just terrified, and they won't communicate with the fans, and that's a real disservice to them. That's a real disservice. It was my point. Let's see. Let's get to the rest.
Yeah, he's probably.
Is there anything else?
It looks like it's coming up to the end of the chapter mark. He's sort of said his piece. So he's hot and bothered about an incomplete picture being painted by the PG. And we discussed it earlier. And like, it is what it is. And so like, we've been going on and on about this for a while here. And we were joking about earlier. We look like nutting apologists. We look like, bootlickers or whatever. And
I'm a contrarian. Okay, I'm a contrarian. That's what I am. So I'm perfectly okay with that. I'll wear it. Yeah,
I mean, I wanted to know if it was plausible that that there's no smoking gun, that it's just boring old reality that is plodding along and there's really not much to see here. It's a small market, and if there wasn't a Major League Baseball team in Pittsburgh today, they would not be on the short list of expansion cities. Absolutely not.
I mean, I want to be fair to people in Pittsburgh because I'm currently in it, and I'm one of them. It's not that we're I mean, it's just the halcyon days of Pittsburgh were in the early 20th century, late 19th century. This team was founded in those times. And to your point, we've had our renaissances, different periods of time through history, and I'm sure there's brighter days ahead and more renaissances to come. It's just in the context of our 1% peers in Philadelphia and Los Angeles and such, we're just the middle class team. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you have certain realities when you are a middle class team. And one of them is some of the stuff that we outlined here today, that are we going to have the entire market of LA's eyeballs on us? No, we're not. And so our television revenues is worth less as a result. Am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong. Shpack, right?
Like that. Yeah, this is probably just how it is. And, it doesn't feel good to not have a villain to point to, as you noted earlier. Like, there's no villain here. It just is what it is, man. And it's a bummer because it does not look like there's a light at the end of the tunnel that will make it all better. And even if, like, Bob's not going to sell, and even if he was going to sell, the new boss, same as the old boss, and the new CBA is probably just going to be mostly continuation of the old one, and it's a bummer, man. I just want our team to be good.
If they do sell, let's say he sold tomorrow, like the Bill Simmons always has that saying about new owner syndrome. So maybe you'd get a year or two of new owner syndrome.
Sure, yeah, that would be that. It would be fun to have somebody come in and learn the hard way why they shouldn't work like that.
The villain of this story is Ben Cherington, and I'm not going to go there, but that's the villain of this.
So until next time, when we learn about the real villain, Ben Cherington.
To just last top line is baseball expensive. Small markets are small.
And the Pirates will probably just win 76 games again this season, right? It's just going to be another 76-win season.
Right. And plus, as of this airing of this today, the Cubs are in last place.
That's right. Yeah, raise the L, right? Fly that L. The Cubs are in last place, down a whole game to our first place Pirates /Reds/Brewers /Cardinals. But the Cubs, no, they're in last place. They're in last place. Cubs are in last.
They're in last
Feels
place.
good. Feels good.
Feels good, bro. Okay.
All right.
Well, it was a lot of fun. Hope anyone watches this and enjoys it. And maybe we'll be back. Maybe we never will. Who knows?
Yeah. Thanks for your time.
It was good.